January 2020, when we bought our Nissan Leaf, only a handful of Jamaicans had an electric car. It was also a tedious process just to register an electric car back then. Also, public charging. What was that? There was no public charging available at the time, or even trained and certified mechanics to work on your car if you had an issue. Also, the community of persons just to help you with day-to-day things with an EV was non-existent. Now, that is all changing, and rapidly so. So, what's new about EVs in Jamaica? Well, Howie and I are going to tell you all about it. So, let's get plugged in, Jamaica. Hi guys, and welcome again to another episode on Plug in Jamaica. I'm here with my cousin Howard Kalash, and you guys would have heard me talk about Howard, about how he convinced us to buy an EV here in Jamaica, right? But we're linking up in New York right now, and Howie, from his vantage point, follows EV happenings in Jamaica very closely. He's an enthusiast. However, has owned, well, Howie, how much cars?
Roughly 1, 2, 3, about 8 electric vehicles in the last 9 years.
So I mean, somebody with experience in EVs. I know he has a Tesla Y and a couple ID4s.
Yep.
Those of you who know those vehicles are. If you don't know, check them out. Really fantastic cars. But he also follows how the take-up is happening in Jamaica closely. And I don't know anybody better to really pick their brain on a couple topics we want to discuss today. All right. So Howie, certain things are accelerating in Jamaica right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
The government has announced certain things to encourage the uptake of e-mobility in Jamaica.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to talk about is just the charging network state in Jamaica right now. What are your thoughts on that?
The state of the infrastructure right now is phenomenal because between Evergo and JPS, they're currently building out charging stations along major roads, corridors that are traveled by many people. Mm-hmm. With the charging stations built out, people are actually able to now see them and basically get a reference that this build out itself is real and Jamaica is taking electric vehicles seriously. As we go along, as with the government's introduction of the new tax incentives for bringing electric vehicles in and the infrastructure development taking place, it would be an opportunity for many people that don't want to pay high gas prices to consider an electric vehicle right now because the running cost is much lower. So the way things are, it's fabulous. You do have Evergo building out between local businesses, providing both level 2 charging as well as DC fast charging. JPS is building out a DC fast charging network, and you have other private entities that have level 2 charging at their location, some free, some you may have to pay through Evergo, but it's working out well.
Great. Right, and I want to hone in on several of the players you just mentioned. You mentioned Evergo, which is probably our largest, and you have JPS,
Yep.
and you have some private players. And it's important for our viewers to understand how these entities operate, because they are a bit different, even though it's a similar service they provide.
Right.
So could you talk about some of those differences?
All right. So, for example, Evergo charges you by the minute. So basically, each time you plug in, your charging session is done per minute. That's a very good advantage because if you only need to top up for like a few minutes, then you're just charged by the minute itself. JPS charges you per kilowatt. So based on how much kilowatts you've taken directly in from their system, they charge you based on that price point. I believe the price point for per kilowatt for JPS is roughly about $70.
Yeah, it goes up and down sometimes.
Right. Yeah. And if you do a calculation, even if you use, let's say, a Nissan Leaf or a Tesla, you will find out that the cost for a full charge itself is probably 1/3 of that of a regular gasoline car. And you can drive from Kingston to Mobile without a problem and not pay an arm and a leg in comparison to driving a gas car. Right. So the opportunities are there.
I remember in a previous video we did that Mr. Stewart said it costs $600 to charge his tank from Kingston to go to Otrius. Can you imagine? Yeah. $600 to go to Otri from Kingston. So, the benefits are clear. But also, these players have apps or different apps that you use and different ways of paying. For example, JPS uses a credit card, right? That you have to add to the, it's totally cashless. So you add it to your app, and at the end of the month, it deducts your bill. So unlike a gas station where you have to pay gas each time, JPS, it deducts your credit card monthly, while Evergo gives you a virtual wallet, right? And you add cash online, of course, to that virtual wallet, and it deducts the wallet as you use it. So just an important distinction in the two, right?
Yep.
Right. But can we talk some more about the apps that they use?
Yeah, most of the underlying software that these apps would use are like the Charge Lab app software itself. Basically, it allows communication between both companies to have an ID, basically to have a common communication between them, so that it's not one software competing with another in order to provide the same service. So I mean, uniformity itself has its merits. There's no monopoly because it's an open source application that allows for different billings, and different companies can have an understanding with the different charging systems that are being used. Yeah, that's the best way to say it.
Okay. All right. And it's important to also note that with the app, it's using what? Wireless communication,
Yep,
right?
wireless
With your phone.
communication.
While you can also get the RFID cards,
Yep.
which is probably a little bit more secure, but not as convenient
Not
as
as
the phone you
convenient as
always
the
have
app.
on you, right? So, right. So they do give you choices and flexibility to how you integrate with their services, right? Um, One other thing that we have to mention though is that apart from these two players, you have opportunities to get free charging.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I know that AC Hotel was the first on the market to introduce charging stations, which were level 2 AC chargers. This itself is basically free to anyone that is actually a customer at the AC Hotel. So I mean, if you want to have some good meals, going to the restaurant, just drive, plug in, and then go sit down inside of the restaurant. Or if you're there for a convention, I mean, you get free charging. It's not a thing where you can go to the people and place and freeload off of it, but
Right.
you have to be a consumer of them services to take advantage of that. Right? You guys had the experience with Mr. Wong over in Portmore.
June Supermarket, right?
Right? And you got the free charging as long as you was there to shop or do anything within the business itself. So I mean, the offering these free services itself is a wonderful idea for businesses to do, and it basically brings good customers, good caliber of customers into their business, and you can draw more people this way as an attraction.
Right. Right. And it's not such a big cost, right?
No.
Because it's just like any appliance on your bill, really.
That is correct.
So it's a good pull for not much of us.
Not
Big
much of an
cost,
investment.
right? So that's good. And we're seeing more players in the market doing this. Persons who might have Airbnbs or a business. It's a good pulling tool to use for new customers, right?
Yeah, it would be.
Right.
I mean, if you have, let's say for example, if you have like a solar car park and you have a charging station there, the cost itself will be minimal directly to the business owner, and you can offer a service that can draw customers. So it would be a huge benefit.
Great. So it's good all around
Yep.
for Jamaicans and the
business
pull
community.
and the business, right?
Yeah.
Right. So we have to mention, we can't talk about the free charging and not talk about PlugShare app, right?
Yeah.
Which is free. So if you're interested, you can actually download the PlugShare app, and it will show you. I'm going to put it on the display here on the screen. You can see all the different chargers across the island: Evergo, JPS, the private ones. So you have an idea of how many chargers we're talking about. It's too numerous to count that are on the island right now, which is a good sign, right?
Yes, it is. So the PlugShare itself is a free app that people actually enter data into. So if you find a new charging station and you don't see it on the map, all you have to do is just pinpoint where that charging station is and just indicate that the charging station is active, and the rest and anybody else that is using the app in Jamaica would be able to see that charging location.
Okay.
Right?
All right. So that's cool. Another thing we want to touch on to Howie, is the tax regime for electric cars right now in Jamaica. There was an important announcement by a Minister of Finance, Sir Nigel Clark, and there's some incentives. I don't know how you feel about them, but let us know what are these incentives.
So from my perspective, and honestly, my opinion, the incentives that are being offered for a 10% duty on electric vehicles is a good move, no questions asked. The allowing it, applying it only to cars 3 years or newer is somewhat of a disadvantage, right? There are many. I do agree with the minister that certain battery technologies are improving as it goes along, and you don't want Jamaica to get stuck with old battery technology. But if anybody that is paying attention to the market segment itself in relation to the battery development over the last 6 to 8 years, you will see that the battery technology itself can be swapped out in the cars. I know it's expensive, but the possibility of using an older electric vehicle with a newer battery technology is there. So the introduction itself, or limiting the age limit, takes away from private individuals that want to study more on the battery technology that can, in turn, basically create a new industry by doing battery swapping or developing new battery technology. Instead of limiting it to the 3 years, move it back to the 6 years, and then from there you would still have cars that people can afford, and then you still have the ability to open up a new industry. But I do understand where his point of view is coming from in relation to it. So, but people should still be aware that the 30% incentive is also still in place for vehicles 6 years and newer, right? So that is still an advantage that, in comparison to a regular gas car, is still beneficial. So it's how you want to play the market in that sense.
Right.
It's still possible. But the 3 year mark, I know it rough. It's a rough.
Just to clarify for our viewers about the tax incentive, it's really on the import duty. So let me start from regular
Gas car.
ICE cars, right? So that person, depending on the CC rating of the car, you're paying from about 67% to 94% import duty, and that is a percentage of the value of the car.
Yeah.
For electric cars, 3 years to 6 years old, you are paying 30%.
30% on the
So
duty,
that already is a benefit, guys. But what the government has introduced now is that for electric cars, 3 years and younger, you only pay 10% import duty of the value of the car.
And it doesn't attract any form of GCT. So,
Exactly.
yeah, it's a really good benefit to bring in a new car. But even if you bring in a 6-year-old electric car, you still get the benefits, because even at the 30% import duty, you are not charged that GCT as well.
Right. So that's what we brought in our car. We brought it in before all this incentive at 30%. So now there's a new benefit of 10% for newer cars.
That is correct.
And a very interesting point you made about the battery swap technology, because we're seeing some companies like Tropical Battery diversifying their business to accommodate that in the future for battery swapping, and not just selling regular
auxiliary battery.
Right.
Yeah, it does open a new opportunity in the market for many new players. So I mean, there's a whole heap of opportunities there. Okay. The key thing about that is that we would need to do more R&D research in order to basically find out what the true benefits are. We do have some companies that are very familiar with the technology that are trying to introduce electric vehicles into the market. So somebody like a company like Flash Motors and Stewart Parent partnering together and bringing in electric vehicles will at some point in time have to incorporate battery swapping technology with the cars that's being offered by both companies. So it's with the limitation on that 3 years, you don't give other people that with the technical experience or with that want to tinker with the battery technology to have an opportunity to basically improve their skill sets in order to move into this type of new industry.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the 10% can be applied, right, to the 6 years. You still have the cars, and you still can open up multiple new industries within the automotive and transportation sectors for many new players.
True. Right. And it's important to point out that there were some other incentives because, I mean, no GCT on lithium-ion batteries.
Yeah.
I think that's big because I do see a direct relationship between an electric car right now and someone deciding to go solar with batteries. And that battery swapping is important because you can swap out the old batteries in the car and use them at your home.
As a standalone.
Right? As a standalone.
A standalone
And of course,
pack,
you're going to need, like what we're seeing with HART, training a cohort of mechanics and technicians to be able to support these services in terms of servicing electric car batteries, and hopefully in the future they will consider doing the battery swap trainings as well.
Yeah, I mean JPS's program right now, when they brought in Andy to do the training for the first set of trainers, it was a really good move, a phenomenal move on their part. I hope that the people that were part of that training go forward and basically share that information and enthusiasm with other people, because that opportunity right there is how we can change the market for the better.
Understood, great. And there's one more benefit that was mentioned. I haven't seen it play out as yet because I waited to see where you get registration fees bypass of 5 years.
Yes.
So anybody buying a new electric car right now, no registration fees 5 years? That's the case?
No registration fee for a 5-year period. The thing about that is the amount of cars that are brought into the island is like, I believe it's limited to like 1,000 vehicles for 1,000 vehicles per year, I believe. So you can correct me. So you can correct me.
I think they removed it, but we can check that out
later.
Right.
From there, it's the incentive to remove the registration. It's either here nor there, but as a individual owner that wants to reduce costs, yeah, it's a huge benefit.
Okay, great. Well, I mean, thank you for that, giving us your 2 cents on the e-mobility take-up. And all these benefits are in addition to what we have been talking about on the channel before about electric cars having 0 emissions, so it's better for the environment. Also, the cost of fueling an electric car is cheaper. Even with the current electricity rates, it's cheaper to charge a car than to add gas to a car. And then the maintenance costs. I mean, it's ridiculous because I think we have had the car almost 3 years. I've never had to change the disc pads because I do regen braking. There's no oil change, there's no spark plugs. I mean, there are so many benefits, right? So thank you, Howie, for sharing your knowledge on the topic. Hopefully more persons will see what's happening and decide that, hey, EV is the way to go. Right?
This is the best way. I mean, the cost of electricity is cheaper than paying for gas. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Right?
All right. Well, thank you again, guys, and stay tuned for more from us at Plug in Jamaica. Take care.